What's going on, dear viewers? This is your gracious host, Kaine Walker, and I've returned. But before we get into today's topic, I want to let you know that 55% of you are returning viewers that are not subscribed. Please, if you find these videos helpful, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can continue to learn from them as much as I enjoy teaching in them. Today's topic is going to be managing creative burnout. I've gotten this question from a few people in my writing group, and it's because they have to balance writing with the other things they have to do in their daily life, taking care of parents, going to work. A lot of them have school, or a lot of them are just bored with what they're currently writing and have an idea for something new. But the thing is, they don't want to abandon their previous idea or risk abandoning their previous idea to jump on the new one. So in this video, I thought I'd lay out a couple of skills and pieces of instruction I've encountered to help manage this more effectively. Some of the coolest things I'm finding about continuing my media journey is that a lot of the things that I've experienced myself, past writers have experienced as well. And a lot of them have inspirational quotes that reflect exactly how I feel as well. So as one of the aspects of managing creative burnout, I do want to go ahead and quote Ray Bradbury. If you stuff yourself full of poems, essays, plays, stories, novels, films, comic strips, magazines, music, you automatically explode every morning like Old Faithful. I have never had a dry spell in my life, mainly because I feed myself well to the point of bursting. I wake early and hear my morning voices leaping around in my head like jumping beans. I get out of bed to trap them before they escape. So what Ray Bradbury is illustrating here in his quote is that he never really, I'm sure he did in the beginning, but as he progressed further and further in his career, he never really experienced creative burnout or writer's block. It was more so that he just, and this is me speculating on his second half, that he needed to step away from what he was doing for a while. But a lot of you feel like you take too many breaks. So what I would encourage you to do is, it always goes back to this, I know, consume more media and take a break at the same time. That way, while you're away from writing your manuscript, you're still learning something that you can return to your manuscript with. And who knows, while you're taking a break, you can become inspired to add something to your story. Another way I heard was from an instructor, B. Malachi Dunn. He's actually helped me a couple times with giving lessons in my writing server. And I may just go ahead and insert a clip of him actually explaining his process of how he manages his creative burnout while balancing his goals. Remind me to pick your brain, Dunn, about some advice about working on multiple projects, because I know a lot of people have asked me about that.
It's actually pretty simple. When I get bored of a project, I just rotate through them, but I keep myself to a goal of a specific number of books finished per year. So that forces me to look at my books and say, okay, which one of these is the closest to being finished, and just work on that. And then if I need to take a break from it, I work on the project.
That's genius. Now that you've heard my opinion on what you can do to manage creative burnout, this is the part where I bring you to an article that further highlights my thoughts. Let's go. This article is going to be coming from nestlabs.com, and it's titled Creative Burnout, When the Creativity Tap Runs Dry. You are probably all too familiar with the dreaded creative block. Sitting in front of your computer, your mind is blank as the page you are starting at, hoping that some miraculous burst of inspiration will suddenly rush through your fingers so you can finally get back into the flow. You also know of the many techniques to deal with creative block. Find inspiration by changing your scenery, maybe going for a walk or packing your laptop to work from a cafe. Just writing whatever crosses your mind, even if it's unrelated to the work at hand, until your mind starts forming interesting connections. Talk to other creatives to brainstorm some ideas. Experiencing a creative block is always inconvenient and stressful, but it is normally short-lived, and feeling occasionally stuck when working on a project is perfectly normal. Even if it may feel like an eternity, we soon end up finding a way to get our creative juices flowing. But sometimes the problem runs much deeper. Creative burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion around creative work. The symptoms can be hard to pinpoint, and the potential causes are many. 8 symptoms of creative burnout. Because it's normal for creativity to fluctuate, depending on factors such as sleep and stress levels, creative burnout can easily fly under the radar, masking temporary procrastination, tiredness, or lack of motivation. For people who genuinely care about their work, and for those who rely on creative output as an emotional outlet, the insidious nature of creative burnout can have a devastating impact on their mental health. When you can't seem to be able to produce any good creative work and you don't know what's wrong, you start blaming yourself. So I put together a list of 8 signs of creative burnout. In isolation, most of these signs are harmless. However, if you have 4 symptoms or more, it may be time to shake things up. I want to add here where it mentions blaming yourself. Sometimes blaming yourself is healthy. You have to be able to be honest with yourself and realize when you are in your way of a goal. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. Where problems come up is where you're stuck in a place of constantly blaming yourself and not being fair enough to yourself to work out a solution. I just thought I'd add that there because there's nothing wrong with blaming yourself, but be fair. Here's a picture of the demonstrative graphic. 1. Procrastination. Putting off work for a couple of days because you don't feel like you have enough mental energy is nothing to worry about. However, if you procrastinate for long periods of time and ignore important deadlines, it may be a sign of creative burnout. 2. Struggle to do basic work. Is your to-do list getting longer and longer, but you can't bring yourself to check some easy tasks off it? Are you burying your head in the sand and neglecting the growing mountain of little things you ought to get off your plate? This may be another symptom. 3. Constant exhaustion. Sometimes we don't get enough sleep and feel sluggish the day after. That's completely fine. But if the physical exhaustion is sustained over a long period of time despite a decent amount of sleep, you may be burning out. Inexplicable stress. Creative work can be stressful. Deadlines, complicated projects with many moving parts, a pushy client. These factors can cause stress within the Goldilocks curve and remain manageable. But creative burnout may make you feel persistently stressed without being able to pinpoint the exact cause. Unhealthy comparisons. You are more connected than ever, and many creators follow the work of fellow creators online. Some creators are more productive than others, and this productivity usually ebbs and flows. If you look at their output and can't help but compare their productivity to yours in a negative way, you may be experiencing a symptom of creative burnout. Unbalanced content consumption. When we burn out, we often find ourselves scrolling endlessly and binging TV shows, but not creating much work of our own. 7. Morning dread. Have you ever experienced that feeling of angst? A sense of doom where your mind is racing into the future and everything seems bleak? Stressful times in our life can make us dread waking up. If this feeling persists, it may be a sign of creative burnout. Or something even more serious. 8. Harmful habits. Eating unhealthy food or eating more than usual, abandoning your exercise routine, drinking more alcohol. If you are experiencing creative burnout, you may be coping through damaging mechanisms, which will leave you feeling even worse. 9. Irritability. You may be feeling frustrated with your colleagues, annoyed with your spouse, or snappy at your kids. Being more temperamental than usual can be a symptom of creative burnout. 10. Self-doubt. Finally, you may also think that you will never be good enough, that your work is pointless, or that you lack the necessary imagination, despite having produced good creative work in the past and having received praise for it. Before we move on to the next section, I do want to highlight number 6 here, unbalanced content consumption. This is absolutely correct, and I do want to apologize here because I neglected to highlight the other end of the spectrum when it comes to content consumption. As a creator, this is absolutely correct. However, during the times of unbalanced content consumption, you can still pull yourself out of it because there will eventually be something that inspires you to start writing again. And I know that's not the same for every person, but whenever I've experienced this, because I have, that's usually how I've gotten out of a rut. I see something within a certain thing that I might be reading or watching, and it spurs me to action. So keep that in mind as well. This was a good point. Please note that if you are experiencing many of these signs or even just one of these for a long time, it may be more serious than creative burnout. Many of these signs are also found in mental health conditions such as depression, anxiety disorders, and seasonal affective disorder, or could be caused by deep sleep problems. In doubt, it's always worth talking to a professional. How to bounce back from creative burnout. Creative burnout can make us feel powerless, as if there was nothing to be done about it, but we have agency and can use simple strategies to break the cycle. Of course, simple does not mean easy, but removing unnecessary complexity from our approach makes it more likely for us to succeed. Get support. Because creative burnout impacts our work, our first instinct may be to hide our struggle from our colleagues. However, just grabbing someone and telling them, "I've been feeling burned out lately," can be immensely helpful. You will find that most people are more than happy to help, whether by giving you a hand with a project, brainstorming fresh ideas, or just lending an ear. Voicing your struggle is also a great first step in bouncing back from creative burnout. Take a break. Not just a short walk, it may be helpful for creative block, but probably not enough to help with creative burnout. Take a proper break, a few days off with your out of office autoresponder on, where nobody will expect any work from you. The anxiety of knowing you are supposed to work but can't bring yourself to is a a vicious cycle. Taking a break is a way to escape that cycle so you can start afresh. Use the time to do things that have nothing to do with work without feeling any guilt. Spend time with your loved ones. Read books. Take naps. Cook. Watch movies. Go on a weekend holiday in the countryside. Take care of your plants. Or just do nothing. That's perfectly fine. Make space for self-reflection. Replace destructive existential angst with constructive self-reflection. It could take the form of journaling, discussing your struggle with a friend, reviewing your current environment and your schedule, running a motivation clinic, or even just talking to yourself out loud. Burnout can be hard to manage when we can't define its exact source. Turn yourself into a self-experimenting scientist and try to uncover the roots of the problem. Look at your past work. Because creative burnout often comes with self-doubt, it's easy to forget all our past accomplishments and focus on our present challenges instead. Go browse your past work, both the good and the bad. If it's good, remember how it wasn't easy to produce. If it's bad, look at how much progress you've made. Channel the feelings you experience while reviewing your past work to overcome your self-doubt. Start with basics. Choose the smallest atomic unit of creative work you can do to get you started again. Are you trying to write a book? Just write one paragraph. Trying to design a new website? Just work on one wireframe. Instead of looking at the mountain of work in front of you and feeling paralyzed, take your first baby step. Don't forget to be kind to yourself. Creative burnout does not mean you don't care about your work. It doesn't mean you are lazy. It doesn't mean you are not talented. Creative burnout can stem from perfectionism, external pressure, high expectations, or hypersensitivity. It's a temporary state, not a permanent condition. Prevention is better than cure. Creativity is fragile. It needs to be fed, but not too much, or consuming an excessive amount of information may destroy its delicate balance. It needs space to grow, but should not be forced, for mechanical work may lead to lifeless output. Despite all our care, sometimes it seems to be gone. Creativity tap has run dry. We experience the dreaded creative burnout. While there are simple strategies to manage creative burnout, the best way to deal with it is to avoid burning out in the first place. Because of all the different causes of creative burnout, it may not always be possible, but creating a mental scaffolding to support your health and creativity can go a long way. Metacognition. Don't wait until things are bad to start reflecting on how you feel, your progress, your goal, and your motivations. Metacognition means thinking about thinking, being aware of your own awareness so you can determine the best strategies for learning and problem solving, as well as when to apply them. It consists in planning, monitoring, and evaluating your creative work on an ongoing basis so you can catch any early signs of creative burnout. Mindful productivity. Mindfulness and productivity may seem antithetic, but borrowing principles from mindfulness when you pursue creative work will help you build a sustainable work environment. Mindful productivity can be defined as being consciously present in the work you're doing while you're doing it. It's not about meditation, about calmly acknowledging and accepting your feelings and thoughts while engaged in work or creative activities. Habits, routines, rituals. Ensure you have the basics covered in terms of mental and physical health. Habits, routines, and rituals all have different levels of intentionality and are all helpful to help you feel balanced and healthy. Manage your habits, maintain your routines, and make new, meaningful rituals to better connect with your inner self. Information diet. A mindful approach to content consumption is about managing the quantity and quality of content you consume. Is the content you consume nourishing, inspiring, fostering curiosity and personal growth, or is it draining and anxiety-inducing? Manage your information diet by curating your inbox, adding more high-quality foods to your content menu, and scheduling your content consumption. Structured distraction. Many creators have internalized the idea that they need to be hyper-focused on their work, but our brains were not designed to sustain attention for long periods of time. We need to alternate between focus and distraction. Instead of forcing ourselves to work through fatigue and demotivation, take creative breaks. It will help you restore your motivation, prevent decision fatigue, and improve your overall well-being. Our individual differences affect the way we experience creative burnout. For some, it may be easier to manage, while for others, it may feel insurmountable. Wherever you currently sit on the spectrum, you know that it is possible to break the cycle and bounce back. That people around you are one of the best sources of support, and that creative burnout means absolutely nothing about your passion, talent, or work ethic. There is no permanent cure for creative burnout. Being attentive to early symptoms and applying some simple remedies is the best way to go. And that's the article. From that article, you can see that pretty much anyone who creates anything has ever been passionate about their craft has experienced some form of creative burnout. And while many professionals find ways around it and ways to deal with it, it still occurs, even with people like Ray Bradbury. It's important to be kind and patient with yourself when dealing with creative burnout, not to get down on yourself, and to allow yourself to step away from your work for extended periods of time. Also, if your way of coping with your creative burnout is to work on something else and bounce back and forth between many projects, that's perfectly fine. As long as you remember to have a focused goal on what order you want to complete each project. I think we can all agree to that. But that's all I have for you today. This has been your gracious host, Kaine Walker, and I'll see you next time. Peace.